Every person lives in the same physical world, yet no two people experience reality in the same way. Two individuals can walk through the same event, hear the same words, or face the same challenge, and leave with completely different interpretations of what happened. One might see opportunity while the other sees disaster. One might feel inspired while the other feels defeated. This difference exists because reality, as we experience it, is not simply the world outside of us. It is the world filtered through the brain. Your brain does not just observe reality, it constructs it. The brain as a meaning-making machine. The human brain receives billions of pieces of sensory information every second: sights, sounds, smells, sensations, and emotions. Yet the brain can't process all of that information consciously. To manage this overwhelming flow, the brain filters and organizes what it believes is most important. This filtering system is influenced by past experiences, beliefs, expectations, and emotional states. In other words, the brain is constantly deciding what deserves attention and what can be ignored. If someone believes the world is dangerous, their brain will naturally highlight threats. They will notice criticism more quickly than praise, danger more easily than safety. On the other hand, someone who believes the world is full of possibilities will notice opportunities and connections that others overlook. Both people are looking at the same environment, but their brains are creating very different versions of reality. The power of belief. Beliefs act like invisible instructions for the brain. Once a belief forms, the brain begins searching for evidence to support it. Psychologists refer to this as confirmation bias, the tendency to notice information that agrees with our beliefs while ignoring information that contradicts them. If someone believes they are not talented, their brain will highlight every mistake they make and dismiss their successes as luck. Over time, this selective attention strengthens the belief, even if the belief is not objectively true. In this way, beliefs can quietly become self-fulfilling prophecies. The brain shapes behavior according to what it expects. If it expects failure, it may avoid risks, opportunities, and challenges that could lead to success. That avoidance then creates the very outcome the brain predicted. The belief becomes the reality. Perception is not objective. It is easy to assume that our perceptions represent the world exactly as it is. But neuroscience shows that perception is more like an interpretation than a recording. For example, the brain constantly fills in missing information. Your eyes have blind spots where the optic nerve connects to the retina, yet you never notice empty holes in your vision. The brain automatically fills those gaps using surrounding visual information. The same process happens with memories, emotions, and social interactions. The brain interprets incomplete information and builds a coherent story around it. This means that much of what we call reality is actually an internal narrative constructed by the brain. Two people can remember the same conversation differently because their brains interpreted it through different emotional lenses. One may recall the discussion as supportive, while the other remembers it as critical. Neither person is intentionally lying. Their brains simply created different versions of the same moment. The role of emotions are powerful architects of reality. They influence what we notice, how we interpret events, and what memories become strongest. When someone is anxious, their brain becomes hyper-focused on potential threats. Small problems appear larger, neutral expressions look hostile, and uncertain situations feel dangerous. When someone feels hopeful or excited, the brain becomes more open and creative. Possibilities appear where obstacles once dominated. This emotional filtering explains why mindset can dramatically affect a person's experience of life. The external circumstances may remain the same, but the internal emotional state changes the perceived meaning of those circumstances. In other words, emotions color the lens through which the brain views the world. Neural pathways and habitual reality. Every thought you think strengthens certain neural pathways in the brain. These pathways are like trails through a forest. The more often you walk a trail, the clearer and easier it becomes to follow. If someone repeatedly thinks negative thoughts about themselves, such as "I'm not capable" or "I always fail," those thoughts become neurologically efficient. The brain learns to travel those mental paths automatically. Eventually, the thoughts feel natural, even though they were learned patterns rather than objective truths. The same mechanism works in the opposite direction as well. Positive beliefs, curiosity, resilience, and creative thinking can also become habitual neural pathways if practiced consistently. Through a process known as neuroplasticity, the brain can reorganize itself based on repeated experiences and thoughts. This means the structure of the brain itself changes depending on how it is used. In a very real sense, the brain is constantly rewriting the way it experiences reality. Expectations shape. experience. Another powerful way the brain constructs reality is through expectation. When the brain anticipates something, it prepares the body and perception systems accordingly. Consider the placebo effect. In medical studies, patients sometimes experience real improvements in symptoms after receiving a pill with no active medication, simply because they believe it will help them. The brain's expectation triggers physical changes in the body, such as the release of certain chemicals or the reduction of pain signals. Expectation can influence performance as well. When people believe they are capable of succeeding, their brains allocate more focus, persistence, and problem-solving resources toward the task. When people believe failure is inevitable, the brain reduces effort and motivation, conserving energy for what it perceives as a lost cause. Thus, expectation quietly guides behavior in ways that bring the anticipated outcome closer to reality. Attention determines experience. Where attention goes, experience follows. The brain has a system called the reticular activating system, RAS, which helps determine what information reaches conscious awareness. This system acts like a spotlight, highlighting certain stimuli while dimming others. When you buy a new car, for example, you suddenly begin noticing that same model everywhere on the road. The cars were always there, but your brain only started prioritizing them once they became relevant to you. The same principle applies to goals, fears, and personal interests. If someone focuses on problems, their brain will continually find more problems. If someone focuses on opportunities, their brain will begin spotting pathways that were previously invisible. Attention shapes perception, and perception shapes experience. Changing the reality your brain creates. If the brain constructs our experience of reality, then altering our mental patterns can change how life feels and unfolds. This does not mean ignoring genuine difficulties or pretending problems do not exist. Rather, it means recognizing the role our thoughts and interpretations play in shaping what we experience. Several practices can influence the brain's reality-building process. First, awareness is essential. Simply noticing habitual thought patterns helps interrupt automatic mental loops. When you become aware that a thought is only a mental pattern, not an objective fact, you gain the freedom to question it. Second, curiosity expands perception. When people approach situations with curiosity rather than judgment, the brain becomes more flexible and open to new interpretations. Third, intentional focus matters. Directing attention toward growth, learning, and solutions trains the brain to search for supportive evidence rather than reinforcing limitations. Finally, repeated practice rewires neural pathways. The brain gradually adopts whichever mental habits are used most often. Over time, small shifts in thinking accumulate into large shifts in perception. The reality within. The physical world exists independently of our minds, but the way we experience that world is deeply shaped by the brain's interpretations. Our beliefs, emotions, attention, and expectations all participate in constructing the reality we perceive. Understanding this process is empowering. It means we are not completely trapped by our circumstances or past experiences. By reshaping the patterns of thought and attention within the brain, we can influence the lens through which life is experienced. The world outside may remain the same, but the world inside can transform. And when the inner world changes, reality itself begins to look very different. Like and subscribe for more.